Maybe before we even talk about the word of the Lord, I think we should talk about, we constantly use this term, the finest generations, for people who are hearing us, why you all keep talking about preparation and so on. Let me set the context, okay? Or at least me, I want to say we as a house of prayer, we believe that we are living in the generations that Jesus is returning. Again, we are not saying that Jesus will come back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We don't know. Okay? We don't know the precise time. But yet the Bible gives us enough information. We have been talking about, there are at least 150 chapters in the Bible that talks about end times. Sometimes people say, I wouldn't know. Actually, it's not true. And there's also a reason why God gives so much information. Specifically, the Bible talks about many, many different generations, but the most talked about generation in the Bible is the end time generation. So there is a reason, because God wants us to pay attention. Okay, why the finest generations? Especially for the young people. The context is that we are living in the generations that there will be people who are alive today. I have no time to unpack. I show it from the scripture. Over the years, scripture can, inverted comma, prove that Jesus likely to return within our generation, because the Bible gives many, many signs. There are a few major signs that is coming to pass. Okay, why is the finest generations? Because if you read the Bible, there are very clear promises. Yes, the Bible talks about the negative, talks about the crisis, talks about the tribulations, but yet the Bible talks about the generations that is living in the time that Jesus will return, will walk in the unprecedented glory, power, and maturity like never before. We are racing towards that. That's why the young generation need to know, because it's your glory. Okay, but there is a requirement for us to prepare ourselves, because we will not automatically be ready, but we will be ready if we are made ready. Okay, there are many passages of scripture that talks about that. That's one reason why what we are talking about, all the words that God has been giving to us and through this decade for the time of preparation for the time, is another phase of God inviting us, especially to the young people, to prepare ourselves so that you can be, the David generations. So really it's about the finest generations. Yeah. You want to say something about the finest generations? Yeah.
In a way, just to add on to what you're saying, is that God is setting us up for success.
Of course, He never set us up for failure.
Yeah, the fact that He invests so much, like giving us words, giving us promises and history, is really to set us on that path of success and maturity.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if there's a saying that goes like in greatest hardship, like it makes the best, it brings out the best out of
greatest hardship.
I don't know, but it's like
another great and wise person would say it.
But I think the image I have of like the finest generation arising is that in the midst of the rage of the enemy, in the midst of increasing lawlessness and rebellion and increasing darkness, like there's going to be that group of people who will truly arise and shine, because in deepest darkness, light shines the brightest. And also through all of that temptation and pressure, like as we set our hearts towards the Lord and becoming who He wants us to be, it kind of shapes us, and it will fashion us to have that greater resolve and that greater abandonment unto the Lord. And I think one of the things that, beyond like the signs and the wonders, I think it's going to be a generation that will really love the Lord the most. Like we'll probably live out like the fullness of first and great commandment.
The Bible talks about that there will be one generation that will live out the first and the great commandment here on earth, not in heaven. In heaven, everybody will.
Yeah.
But here on earth, there will be one generation,
Yeah.
only one generation. That's the generation that Jesus is returning. If you are that generation, that is your glory. Okay, anybody else will probably squeeze through. I won't miss it. So people need to know, so that we prepare ourselves. So not this, people have this idea. End time is kind of like we buy the bullets and they all buy a cave hide inside. Come back quickly, Jesus, save us. No, we will be mature. We will be glorious. Yes, it will be difficult, challenging, and the earth will be full of darkness. That's what Isaiah 60 talked about. But there will be a group of people who will shine the brightest and carrying the glory of God, loving Jesus. Revelation 12:11 talks about that. They love Jesus even until death. Man, that is glorious.
Yeah, because it's in a time where our passion and our affections are going to be the most like contested for and battled for.
Yes, yeah.
But yet there's going to be that generation so empowered and so lovesick. And I think God is going to impart like that kind of flame and divine love in our hearts to be able to step into that reality where there's no minimum requirement. I think for a lot of us now, it's just like we just do the basics, the right things of mere good Christianity.
Because we do basic requirement because we firstly don't know who God is. Because if we know God, we know His beauty, we know His worthiness, we are not going to give basic requirement. We're going to abandon our all. I think the problem is because we know God so little. That's why Christianity is about really knowing God. Because if you know who He is, He's so worthy, you're going to give your all. If you stand before the throne of God, we're not going to give Him half a crown. The 24 elders cast all their crown at the feet of Jesus because they know who Jesus is. They see who Jesus is. That is the key thing. Yeah, and also the promises that God has for us is going to be glorious. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we want to talk about this finest generation is because, especially for people who are hearing, we are part of IHOP movement. Okay, IHOP movement is more than just worship, more than just prayer. Yeah, worship and prayer is the center of what we do. It's about intimacy with God, but it's also about preparing a generation to be made ready for the return of Jesus. Go and find out. There are many prophetic promises. The prophetic promises is not just for House of Prayer in Kansas City, and not just for House of Prayer movement around the world, whether it's in Singapore, in Taiwan, in Malaysia, in wherever part of the world. It's the promises of God for the generation of young people that will live in the time that Jesus is returning. That's why we are here. We are preparing ourselves, and that's what I'm living for. That's the thing. So set that goal to be the finest generation, especially if you are the young people. Don't settle for such a low, benchmark as you live 5 C's and so on. These are low. Just aim for the 1 C, which is Christ, and also the promise that He has for you. Yeah. I mean, I feel like talking about my encounters, but I never have to talk about it first. These finest generations.
Yeah, actually, as you were saying, I was reminded that we all have this bookmark. We were all given like a bookmark, laminated about this finest generation prophecy.
It's a word by Bob Jones.
Bob Jones,
Sense of Time.
Yeah, and he basically said that their children, that means your children,
my children,
will walk in a measure of the Spirit that they themselves, that means you and your generation, will not attain. And that their children and grandchildren, that means your children and your grandchildren, which I guess is like us and then one more children. And our children, will possess the measure of this, will possess the Spirit without measure if they walk in a life with no mixture, for they are the best of all generations that have ever been on the face of the earth. Yeah, and I think the first time I heard it, I was a bit...
Kind of what? Go over your head, isn't it?
It sounded... like when you watch movies, it sounded like... at certain parts in movies when you have the big soundtrack and then with like the symphony and then like a big announcement and that kind of like feeling. I basically... Yeah. I basically got that feeling like it sounded very dramatic and very over the top at when I first heard it. Yeah, but I think and perhaps like it's probably just like a mindset to change that actually it is going to be dramatic, but at the same time it's not going to be like how to say, it's not going to be like that instantaneous like zap. It's going to take
It's a process.
the process of
journey.
growing a journey. And because I also was wrestling through this with the nameless and faithless generation promise lah, where it's not going to be like, oh, Catherine Kuhlman passed today. It's not going to be Bob Jones or Paul Kane, pass here today.
Liu Lim, the great and the wise one. That's our joke.
Yeah, but it's gonna be, these people are gonna be nameless, faceless. No one's gonna know who they are.
Nameless faces, but know God and move in some unsurpassed prophetic power and supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's available for everyone who wants it.
Yes. Yeah. So I think like it's definitely a process of like renewing my mind, and because we live in such a world where it's so I wouldn't say
bombarded.
Yeah, we're so bombarded just by the natural that we're so used to living in the physical that we don't realize that there's something more that the Lord even has for us, and walking in that measure of the spirit that's never before been walked in. I don't even know like what, I can't imagine. I'd have no greed for that because it's gonna be unprecedented. But I think we can also look back to how certain people have moved in the Holy Spirit for
of course, we
that
learn
great.
from everyone.
And then really it's that having to even in our lives like walk with the Holy Spirit, begin to prepare, like you talk about prepare, so that we can arise to be that finance generation now. And even as we talk about it, I still, it's like I cannot imagine what it will be like, but if it's something that the Lord wants for us, then we need to reach for it. We need to press in for it, and I guess I think for myself also to keep on staying like at a place of like amazement that, oh wow, God actually calls us to be finance generation, and we're not born in a wrong time.
Yeah,
like
born for such a time.
Yeah, but we're actually born for such a time.
Let's change place if you don't want.
No.
Yeah. I think I can't remember who is the one who said this. This is so important for, especially this generation of young people. But of course, it applies to every generation. But especially for this generation of young people, I can't remember who said that. Maybe you all can add in for me. The statement is, find out what God is doing in your generations and throw yourself fully into it. Yeah.
I think it's this guy called Arthur Wallace.
Okay. Because God is going to do something so glorious for this generation. There's no better time to live in. I'm not talking about, there's 5G, there's metaverse, things are more advanced and so on. I'm talking about that many of the promises of God in the Bible, what God has written in the Bible, many of us will live out the reality. Okay, so really it's about finding out what God is. No, two things. One is find out who God is. Okay, have that living encounter with God, and also find out what God is doing in your generations. When you know, not in the mind, not just information, but really that revelation and encounter, and throw yourself fully into it. That's what happened to me. My life changed. I live by this few greed, a few encounters, and so on. My very first conference that I attended was John Wimber conference. That was 1989 or 1990. Some of y'all would not know John Wimber. Whoever talk about John Wimber, that means you are old. Okay, but I attended. That's my first Christian conference. I got saved only after a few years after I got saved. Okay, and the conference is called Power Encounter or something like that. Where, of course, they talk about supernatural signs, wonders, and miracles, but they also talk about what God is doing in this generation. People like John Wimber, came Paul Kane, Jack Deere, I think Mike Baker too, I was surprised. But my heart was so marked, and it changed the way I view my faith. It changed the way I view Christianity. It changed the way I view life. I throw myself fully into it. And of course, I had two very powerful encounters from the Lord where God spoke to me in a audible voice. One is about that He's raising up a end-time army in the generations that Jesus is returning, and is inviting me to be part of this move. But He made a very clear statement that this is an invitation. This is not a commission. Primarily, there's a requirement to prepare ourselves. Okay, so that's how I live my life. It forms the grid of how I view church, how I view Christianity, how I view life, how I view my generations. I was a little bit disappointed now in the sense that because I realized that it's not my generations, okay, but it's fine, but that changes my life. And then another audible voice encounter where God spoke to me in a very clear voice that, of course, true, Zechariah 8:23, that we will come a time that we will move in unsurpassed supernatural power and prophetic. That's why I do prayer. I do prayer is not primarily, the secret is out. Not primarily I love prayer. I love Jesus. I want to talk to Him. But also, one of the main thing is that I'm contending for the promises for my life, and I'm contending promises for your generations. So that's especially the young people. You are living in the generations that God is going to do much things and greater things. John 14, verse 12, Jesus talked about the greater works. Daniel 11, verse 32, talks about that. There will have the end-time generation that will do a great exploit with God. Okay, don't settle. I'm speaking to everybody, but even primarily to you all. Don't settle for anything less. If your goal is to be CEO, if God calls you, fine. But if it's not, your goal is to be a CEO, not COE, okay? COE is pretty expensive now, okay? But your goal is to be a CEO, okay? That is a low life goal. If your goal is to have a Maserati, that is a very low life goal. Aim for the very things that God has for you, for your generation. That is the key thing. And that's why God has been speaking, hastening what He's doing even in this time. And I'm trying to say, even all the word, I'm trying to put into context what God has been speaking to us the last 5-6 years. I'm not saying that end time is coming. We don't know, but we are closer than we think. But God is in different time, different decade, different phases. He's actually preparing us to be ready, because of course time is going to get more serious, but at the same time too, it's going to be more glorious.
Actually, I have a question. I think
Me or Annabelle?
Anyone can answer. Because I think in this generation, what we are, in a sense, fighting against, right, is that the enemy also knows that he has little time, and there's a lot of bombarding of like the desires and the pursuits in this young generation. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Uncle Kijong, you could share like how as a young generation in this climate, right, do we keep that kind of a hunger and that kind of a dogmatism, like maybe not dogmatism, but like that zeal, especially for people who are in a sense just beginning to realize like, hey, maybe there's something more to life than settling my own life first, then pursuing God.
Okay. The goal is, it's not by human zeal that can sustain passion. People ask me, how do you sustain your passion? The thing is not that I'm smarter, I'm better. I'm thankful to God that there are some of this revelation and encounter that mark me and change my life. So I always tell people that the cry of our heart constantly should be, Jesus, show me more. Grant me revelation, grant me encounter, cause me to see you. Because if you see Him and also see His promise and the storyline for us, we're going to live life differently. Yeah, that's why Psalm 77:4 is one of my favorite verses. It's also the verse for this house of prayer, and also a verse for many house of prayer, because it's the foundation and anchor of what we do and how we live. Is to behold the beauty of God, because we truly see the beauty, the worth of who He is. We are not going to hold back. We're going to pursue. Like what Paul said, in Philippians 3. It's not. Yes, there is that sacrifice, there is that paying of pride. It's true. Okay, but if it's about sacrifice, about gritting of teeth, and about paying the price, it will always be hard. Is that far? That is that limit that you can go, because by our own human flesh, we are all weak. And I'm saying, because if it's about enduring pain, the moment you see blood, just like fasting chicken wing come, your heart move, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If it's about enduring pain, something more pleasurable that comes, your heart will move. Okay? But when you see Jesus and you realize that He is worthy, then you see life, you see our faith, you see pursuing, you see going after God with, of course, there's a requirement of discipline. It's no longer the same, because it's not the paying the price, but it's pursuing a prize, going after a prize that you want. Your heart really that is going after. So that's why one of the most prayed prayer in many houses of prayer is Ephesians 1:17. Asking God to give us the spirit of wisdom and revelation, so that the eyes of our heart are open, that we see clearer. The problem is because we don't see that well. We thought that Jesus is he's not so worthy. If we are able to, that's why Revelation 4 and 5 is so important to chapter, more than just for houses of prayer, for believers. Because Revelation 4 primarily is about the holiness of God. He's beautiful. Okay, and then Revelation 5 is about the worthiness of God. He's worthy. We often say that, worship is not an act. Worship is a response. Okay, a lot of times we don't worship well is because we don't see God clearly. If we see God clearly, we will naturally respond to Him. So that's the key thing, is that it's not about, yes, we need to try, but it's not about trying harder. It's about seeing clearer. Okay, just one encountering experience, okay. Then we're going to talk about the word of the Lord. I know someone who had an heavenly encounter. Okay, whether it's a spirit or whatever, like what Paul said in 2 Corinthians 12, was taken before the very throne of God. Okay, so this person said this, of course, this person saw the Lord sit on the throne, fullness of glory and fullness of beauty. Okay, when this person came back, he made this comment, always in my heart, that one day when we all stand before Jesus face to face, we all will. Whether before He comes, that means we die, we stand before His throne, or when He comes back, okay, most people will have a sense of regret. I said, in my heart, I said, why? Why we regret? When we begin to see the fullness of His worthiness, we have wished that we have given so much more to Him, we pursue Him harder here on earth. That's why we need to see, we need to see who He is. And we need to know the promise and the inheritance that He has for us. Now, personally, corporately, generation, now, and eternally. Then you will live your life differently. It's not about, yes, we need to try. No, I'm not taking away the need for discipline, the need to put in effort and pray the prayer, read the Bible, and so on and so on. But that can carry you that far. But when you see, you live life differently. Like the Hebrews 11, the word is not worthy of. If you use my language, is that I would say that mad people who live in such a way, they are puzzled by how can you even live that way. People are puzzled because how can you live that way? And they'll say that you don't know him, isn't it? You haven't seen him, isn't it? So that's a key thing that every one of us needs to pray to have that encounter and that living relationship. It's turning back to what we are actually talking about, about the word of the Lord. I'm so thrilled and excited because to me, even over the last 5-6 years, seeing how God has spoken or how He has led, to me is wow.
Yeah.
It's challenging, it's difficult, but it's exciting. Firstly, it's exciting because I see His hand, I see His fingerprint, and it's challenge. I'm full of confidence because if He is able to tell me and lead me, I can have confidence in the future. But most important thing, like Annabelle, tears in her eye or whatever, I say, wow, God is alive. I'm walking with Him. I'm going to partner with Him. If He is alive, if He is real, that means all His promises will be true. And with that, you live with that passion and the zeal to want to touch it. You want to walk in that reality, all that the Bible has written. You want to put your name. That's why I more and more I read the Bible very differently, more than just some truth, some fact, some information, or some theology. It becomes very personal. Like Jeremiah 3:15. I will give you shepherd according to your own heart. When I make it very personal, it's like, I will give Chron to be shepherd according to my own heart. That's a key thing. Yeah. Then you look at God, you look at our faith, you look at this time that we are living in a very different lens. That's a key thing. Let's talk a bit more about. Yeah, you want to say something? Yeah. You can say it.
No, that was a good question. And that was a good answer because I think, like the young generation gets so distracted. So as our desires are being pulled in 100 different directions. Yeah. So I guess when you said that we need to really see who this beautiful man is, it will then cause us to pursue. It's more than just denying ourselves, although that is a part of the process, but that's not the main focus or the main goal.
No.
But it's running after Jesus, who is beautiful.
Yes, see Christ as the prize. See Christ as the exceedingly great reward because He is our ultimate prize. People can say it's routine or legalism. No, it's not routine or legalism. One of the things that almost I cannot say every day. Okay, there are days that I didn't, but almost every day, I ask. One of the first thing in the morning is I cry out to the Lord. Jesus, may you be my one thing. It's you that I want to gain. May you be my exceedingly great reward. Open my eyes. Very standard. Obviously, so routine. No, prayer no longer become routine when you begin to connect with the heart of a living person. I say, I want to see your glory. I want to see your beauty. I want to see your holiness. I want to see your worthiness. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I keep asking, and more I begin to understand. That doesn't mean that suddenly heaven open up. I'm still waiting Okay, heaven open up. Then there's that realization in your heart. And then you realize that your life, your heart changed, you live things differently, that kind of thing. That is the reality of who God is. Yeah, I don't even know how to explain. So more and more I can understand, sometimes, whether it's John or Paul describe about God, is like He's like no words can express. Yeah, mine is, maybe it's because my English not good. Okay, but it's true. Some things you have no words to express. Yeah, that's why our life is a message, is a testimony.